I'm Larry Bishop, and you're listening to The World Is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about...
In the cut. You got to do it with the New York accent.
In the cut.
Like,
in the cut.
You do it.
In the cut. In the cut. How about that?
Okay.
Hey.
Welcome to The World Is Wrong, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films and film artists the world is wrong about. I am one of your hosts, and my name is Andras Jones.
And I'm the other host, and my name is Bryan Connolly.
Oh, boy, you sure are. We're here to talk about Jane Campion's most popular film, In the Cut.
Yeah.
You selected this film.
I did.
Because the material discussed last week in Good Luck, Miss Wyckoff, there just wasn't enough of that. You wanted to have continue the difficult conversations about women we don't understand.
Yeah. And it didn't, like, the last movie didn't have enough, body parts in a dryer. So...
Yeah, this film definitely has that.
This movie is a little gross, and I'm excited to talk about it. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Well, in preparation for this, I can't say I've seen them all, but I have increased my Jane Campion awareness significantly. I've watched about three or four more of her films that I hadn't already seen since I knew this was on the docket. So it's going to be an exciting conversation about In the Cut and Jane Campion in general. So let's listen to a clip from the film and then come back and talk about it.
There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers.
I've been wondering about you.
Yeah? Don't.
I want to know
Know what?
how you did that to me. Somebody taught you. Who was that?
Get the fuck out of here.
You can tell me. An older woman.
Older woman, huh? Chicken lady.
The chicken lady.
You know her? When I was 15, I was delivering chickens for a butcher, the housewives, for a buck of chicken. First time I show up there, it was fucking hot. And I came to the door, she offered me a glass of water. So we're in the kitchen talking about the weather or some shit, and she just reaches out, she grabs a hold of my joint. She asked me, does that feel good? I said, yeah. And she asked me, you ever been with a woman? I said, yeah, no. So she takes me into the bedroom. She takes her clothes off, and she's real womanly. I mean, she's got pubic hair from here to here. It's black and curly like the Spanish girls. And I want to get the fuck out of there. So she grabs me and says, have you ever kissed a girl down there? I said, no. So she wets her fingers. She touches herself real soft. She touches her clit, tells me to lick there. Tells me to put my tongue there, take my time, lick in a slow circle. And after a while, she came. She asked me to give her. Get on top of her and look her in the eyes.
Yeah, this movie's dirty.
Dirty? Sexy.
Sexy.
Erotic.
Neurotic. So, basic plot of it, but I don't want to give away too much. And we will as we talk about it.
Yeah.
So, spoilers, this is a thriller. So there's twists and turns. It's a murder mystery. So watch the movie before you listen to this. So the movie is about Franny Avery, played by Meg Ryan. She is a school teacher. She's also a writer. She's working on a book on slang. Is that right? That seems like what she's doing. And she's meeting with one of her students named Cornelius, a black student, played by, I'm going to say this name totally wrong, Sharrieff Pugh. Does that seem right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I when I watched it, but this is sort of the plot of the film Ball of Fire. Barbara Stanwyck and Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper's working on a book of slang, and Barbara Stanwyck is the sort of guinea pig who has all the lingo, the hipster lingo. So I hadn't even thought about that. But here we have Jane Campion subverting Billy Wilder. Anyway, go on.
And her student is obsessed with John Wayne Gacy. And it's interesting that it's revealed that it's a student at a high school, I think, because their relationship is a little flirty. It feels kind of inappropriate. She's meeting him at a bar, but she's working on this book. Meanwhile, we find out she is really close to her half-sister, Pauline, played by Jason Leigh, who lives above a seedy kind of little strip club, like a little tiny hole-in-the-wall strip club. Meanwhile, she has to deal with her crazy, unstable ex-boyfriend, played by Kevin Bacon. Not even an ex-boyfriend. They went on a few dates. She called it off. He's clearly not interested in having it be over. And so she's kind of having to dodge him in and out of coffee shops and stuff while she's just trying to have breakfast. But that's the least of her problems. There is a serial killer amongst her in her building, beheading people. What's the detective say? He has a word for it. It's a weird word that I've never heard before. The way he describes it as a beheading, it's sort of like not discombobulated, but
not decapitated.
Not decapitated. And then the detective on the case is Detective Giovanni Malloy, played by the great Mark Ruffalo, being very New York, very East Coasty. He could be right out of NYPD Blue in this movie. And as he's trying to solve this case, and as she's sort of like being haunted by these feelings of terror, there's also a relationship, a really intense relationship, a very sexual relationship that forms between the detective and Franny. Some dirty talk, some role playing, a little bit of S&M. It's very intense. The movie does not shy away from showing you how intense these scenes are. This is a sexually graphic movie. I think you, like me, also watched the unrated version, which would be considered an X-rated movie. And the plot goes along. There's
probably a very disappointing X-rated movie.
Not a useful one, if you catch my drift. But it's things get complicated. Emotion is already the relationship between Malloy and Franny is a complex sort of relationship, and it gets more complex as the mystery slowly unfolds and as paranoia builds within the character of Franny, where she doesn't know who the killer is. Is it the Gacy-obsessed student? Is it the unstable ex? Is it the intense sexual cop? Or somebody else? This is Jane Campion's take, I feel like, on the erotic thriller. This is definitely in that world of like a Basic Instinct or like all those 90s erotic thrillers, but done very differently, because unlike those movies, this has a very kind of feminist slant to it, based on the novel by Susanna Moore, who also wrote the screenplay with Jane Campion. And that's sort of the basic plot. There's more to it. We'll get into it. Also worth mentioning, Patrice O'Neal is in this movie, in one of the few dramatic performance, or in a movie that is dramatic that he is in. R.I.P.
Okay. Well, Bryan, Do you want to tell us how the world is wrong about this this film in the cut?
Yeah. And similar to Jennifer's Body, which we covered last year, and you can certainly find that episode, this was a movie when it came out that really confused people, was really hated by people. People found this movie disgusting. They thought it was gross. It had, at the time, one of the lowest scores of an audience ever. Like, they did a test screening and it got like an F. I think these were people going to see the new Meg Ryan movie and not expecting to get this Meg Ryan movie. So it was very hated for a long time. And only until really recently have people begun to slowly kind of uncover how great this movie is, and we're part of that for sure. And it's weird at the time that no one liked it, because Jane Campion has always had a very unique point of view, a very unique perspective, and this certainly isn't her first disturbing film. We'll talk more about her movies, but like Holy Smoke, The Piano, those are also about very complicated relationships between men and women and have very complex sex in it. And so this isn't like new territory for her by any means, but I think maybe the presence of America's sweetheart Meg Ryan threw people off. Originally, this was supposed to star Nicole Kidman. She had to bow out because she was dealing with her divorce from Tom Cruise, and she's still on board as a producer. And maybe it would have been more easier for people to handle with her in it because she was already in kind of complicated movies like this, whereas Meg Ryan, only before this, I think you had When a Man Loves a Woman was the only other kind of her doing like a straight drama, not like some dumb thing with her and Tom Hanks. So I think that's why the world is wrong.
Was this before or after Hurly Burly?
Oh, I want to say it was after. So that, I guess, was or around this time, wasn't it? Or was that late 90s?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that's 98.
Yeah. I don't remember that movie at all. I know I've seen it. Is that her doing a dramatic performance?
Very much so. Yeah. I always thought this was a Nicole Kidman film, but having really given it my attention, I'm much happier that it's a Meg Ryan film because we don't have many Meg Ryan. It is very much a Nicole Kidman kind of performance, and we already have a Nicole Kidman, Jane Campion performance in Portrait of a Lady.
Yeah.
And we don't have many characterizations like this from Meg Ryan. And the acting in this film is pretty great. Seeing these three actors at this point in their careers giving these performances, that alone, and knowing that they're dealt with, with the sure hand that Jane Campion brings, is that's enough to make it worth people's attention.
And it's interesting because I feel this was sort of like the end of a big wave of Meg Ryan, but the beginning of a big wave for Mark Ruffalo. Like they're kind of at they're at a crossroads of their careers at different places. Like this is when Mark Ruffalo's about to be in a lot of really good stuff. Like this is right around the time of Zodiac, a few years before Zodiac. Before he's the Incredible Hulk. Like Mark Ruffalo's about to become like another great actor that we know about. I think when this movie first came out, not a lot of people knew who he was.
And this is definitely going to be one of my favorite. Right now, it's one of my favorite Mark Ruffalo performances. He's definitely changing up his rhythm. It's a from an acting standpoint, it's a very conflicting and difficult role to pull off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the same could be said of his mustache. And as someone who takes who considers the terrain of a man's upper lip to be sovereign ground, in the words of our dear departed Mordecai.
Why is he departed?
I don't think we're getting any more Mordecai films. I'm just I think that was it. Mark Ruffalo is channeling like Hustle era Burt Reynolds. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
And it's such a it's such a believable character, as complicated as his character is, and he's a very complex character. It just feels so lived in. Like the moment he shows up, like you just get like this character is like and the way he, like the more information about him, his personality unfolds, and the way he has his moods and just carries himself, it feels so real. Like I think it's an amazing performance, and it's one that if this movie wasn't so shunned at the time, it could have gotten him some awards or something, because he's so good here, like top of the game. For him.
It's a very I consider it to be a very unlikable character, and it's really just the Mark Ruffalo charisma underneath it that I think sells it, but he is giving a very like an unapologetic sort of just a guy that you on paper you can't like this guy. He's not a likable guy. He says really shitty things. He behaves in stupid ways. He's weirdly abusive to our, like, in some ways cinematically justifiably abusive to our heroine, but in other ways just mystifyingly dense. Like there's a scene when we're going to start spoiling it now, so just really you should watch the movie.
Let's spoil it now.
So there's a scene when after Jason Leigh has been killed by this serial killer who's going around, and she's Meg Ryan's in the police station with Mark Ruffalo, and she asks him if he killed her, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here! Get her the fuck out of here!" And it's like, you're already lovers. Her sister just died, and she is making a maybe crazy. Even it like I don't care. Like I don't care what she said.
Well,
I don't care what she said. Saying get the like you're the professional cop guy, and
let's backtrack for a second. Not only did her friend get murdered,
her friend, her sister.
It's her sister.
Half sister.
She was the one who found the body.
Yeah.
And then she was found by Ruffalo's character cradling her sister's head. Her severed head. Like she's sitting in the bathroom, like totally in total shock. And what my mind is like an hour later, maybe she's justifiably upset and kind of out of it. And him to just be kind of turning it more into like a couple squabble of just like, what are you doing to me? Like, it's just like, I think she has the right to be incredibly upset and can accuse or say whatever right now, because she just went through something that most people never, thankfully, have to go through. Like something she'll remember for the rest of her life, like a truly traumatic event.
Yeah.
and then that leads to him describing to her how it happened. She's sort of adamant. So the scene gets even more like where she wants to be like, tell me what happened. I want to know.
Is that
like,
before
no, you
or
don't.
after? Doesn't he tell her?
I can't remember, but it's in the same moment.
Yeah, he tells her before. So this is after he's telling her this thing that, like, of course, you know these details about that you're telling. Like, oh boy, like it's so funny. It's so funny. Like, because did you focus on the same thing as being like? Because there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in the movie, but something about that moment was too much for me.
Well, just because he describes in great detail this horrible murder, and then he turns it against her and was like, sort of like, why are you being a jerk to me? And it's like, come on, guy. And his character is...
you know what? I was just thinking about it, because if you're looking at this film as a subversion of the erotic thriller and turning it into, like, turning all these tropes on their head, so if Mark Ruffalo is kind of... he's the dumb lady cop in another movie who's following around our, like, the person, the gumshoe or whoever we know that we have, that we're like, and like that he gets caught up in jealousy and protocol and misses what's actually going on. And the way the movie ends with him tied up, and while she has to go off and do battle and save the day, and you can kind of see that that's the kind of frustrating thing that a poorly written female character would do in another movie, like turning this life or death thing into some jealousy, emotional thing.
Yeah. And and it's just, and this is like one of many complicated scenes between these two characters. Like, there's also, I mean, every scene of them kind of being intimate is not an easy scene. Like, there's the part where, well, because it's already inappropriate because he's basically wooing her and hitting on her while he's trying to solve this horrific murder that's also including her sister. And and
well, the sister is until later.
I know, a little later, but still, it's sort of like, but still, it feels like you're a person, a witness, supposedly, like, because that's sort of how she gets involved. Is she was supposedly near where this happened, and then there's also this sort of thing from the beginning where she may or may not have seen him get a blowjob from a prostitute or a stripper in the basement of this bar, but you can't tell because it's dark. And that's the scene of the most graphic sex in terms of showing stuff. You actually see the blowjob. That's only in the unrated version. According to Jane Campion, it was a fake penis, not a real penis. But so there's all this. So from the get-go, he's already sort of shrouded in mystery, and you already from the beginning think along with her, he could be the killer. I don't know. I don't really trust this guy.
Well, yeah, because they have... by the way, we're telling this movie like it's Memento. We're working our way back from the end to the beginning. But, yeah, the big plot point is that the guy getting the blowjob at the beginning of the movie has a tattoo.
Has a tattoo on his hand.
On his hand. And the first time that Meg Ryan's character meets Mark Ruffalo's character, she sees that the tattoo on his hand, and much like Miss Wyckoff in the last movie, we don't get the sense that Meg Ryan's a virgin, but we do get the sense that Jennifer Jason Leigh's character feels obliged to encourage her to do anything, to get out, to be with a man, because she seems pretty locked up.
Yeah, that she's kind of focused on her work and kind of just does that and doesn't really, yeah.
So basically, when she sees, she has this erotic experience when she walks down into the basement of this place in a scene that I couldn't help reminded me a lot of The Prom that I was in with Jennifer Jason Leigh, where that also has going down into the basement of a building and seeing odd things in the corners of, and getting sort of not being able to move. So just whatever. That was my weird synchronicity with it. But so she walks down and has this erotic experience as a witness that she doesn't know she's a witness to a potential murderer and his soon-to-be victim.
Yeah.
And so when Mark Ruffalo shows up, she has, and the film does, I think, a really good job of this, of capturing that, like, it should be frustrating. She sees the thing and she should just be like, "You're the murderer. Were you down in the basement getting a blowjob?" But she doesn't say that. She sort of like tries to play coy because she's kind of turned on, as we find out, she was turned on by that experience. So she's kind of turned on by the idea that this cop might have been that guy. And it hasn't been established that the one with the tattoo is the killer yet anyway. So as information mounts about that, she goes from being sort of scared, turned on by this guy, to being just scared of this guy, but also sort of intimately woven with him. And having watched a lot of Jane Campion's films just in the last week, this like getting caught up in a conflicted relationship with a potentially dangerous, broken man seems to be a theme.
Yeah,
for Ms.
a
Campion.
constant theme. Yeah. And again, her character Franny is a very complicated character, and Meg Ryan does an amazing job. Like, she is, again, very believable. And I think if anyone else, if other people did it, or in other movies that have had this type of character, you want to reach into the movie and be like, snap out of it. You shouldn't be doing this. Like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you telling the truth to people? Why are you hanging out with these people? But the way she does it, it's totally, you understand kind of her character arc. Like it's like the way she's playing sort of this feeling, this dealing with this feelings of danger is fantastic. Like, and you totally get into it. Like, it is a erotic thriller that actually has the thrilling parts of it. It's not just cheesy. Like, you actually are being like, ooh, this is dangerous. Oh, what is she doing? Oh, but this is kind of exciting. Oh, this is kind of titillating. Oh, this is wrong. And it's kind of playing all these feelings. And she does it really well. And I think I've never seen her play such a real character in a movie before. Like, she's always been very likable, and I've always really liked Meg Ryan. But this just feels like such a grounded character. Like, this is definitely not the type of character that would be in a romantic comedy. She doesn't smile a lot in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, if I think the one who thinks they're in a romantic comedy is Kevin Bacon's character. He's like, hey, wouldn't it be a great, cool thing if you looked after my dog? Oh, you're not going to look after him? Then I'm going to kill it.
And he's great too. And I forgot he was in this movie. And this is prime Kevin Bacon. He's creepy. He's scuzzy. He's kind of a spaz. He's kind of a dweeb. Like, it's a kind of a comic relief in a strange way, but then also really disturbing and scary.
Yeah, scary.
And it's really intense. And just the way
comedy.
he keeps showing up. The way he keeps showing up, and the way she is just like, oh, this fucking guy. And then there's that point where, because, like, through the whole movie, you're like, oh, you need to get away from this guy's trouble. Like, he may be the murderer. Like, he's, like, lingering outside her apartment, calling her on the phone, being all pissed off.
Shows up in her apartment.
Then, shows up.
Bed.
Just shows up, and she's, like, justifiably freaked out because you, at this point, think maybe he's the one killing people. He's great. It's rare that I think you get a good, like, supporting performance from Kevin Bacon. Usually he's been the lead in the last, like, 25 years, but like, this was just a nice little, like, casting him was smart. It's a really good idea to kind of sprinkle in this movie, which already has great actors, for this weird little part.
Hey, and I have a question for you. Did you notice, this is, maybe I watched the film many more times than you did, but the coffee shop, not this film, but the film I'm about to reference, the coffee shop in this, where Jason Leigh and Meg Ryan meet up.
Yeah.
I really think it's the same coffee shop as the scene in The Believer.
Oh.
The one that Natasha Leggero was in for just a second.
Yeah.
I think that's...
they look similar. Maybe this was like the go-to early aughts indie coffee shop for your movie in New York. Huh.
Yeah.
How can we find this out? Wow. I hope they have on the
there's
wall.
whole sites devoted to the places that were in movies. But
I would love it if you go to this coffee shop and they have just like stills from In the Cut and The Believer on the wall. Be like, this is our claim to fame. That horrible murder movie and that white supremacist skinhead movie. Yeah. Just like the owner with his arms around some skinheads, or just like a sad looking Meg Ryan and Jason Leigh. And what's great about this movie, other than the the filmmaking is so top notch, and the way it's shot, where it's very voyeuristic, and all these shots that are kind of like blurry and some it's just a little bit in focus, or a lot of like lingering behind things, where you're kind of getting this feeling that Meg Ryan is always being watched, or is always going to have to keep her guard up. That there's some guy because at first you think it's the point of view of Kevin Bacon's character at the beginning, but then you realize this is just how this movie's shot. It's just shot in this sort of nerve-wracking way. And I really like that. I found that very effective in kind of building sort of to this idea that, Meg Ryan doesn't trust any of these guys really that she's dealing with, or any men in the world in general. And why would you? Look at how all the men are in this movie. They're very complicated and a little bit dangerous, or very dangerous. So I really appreciated just sort of like the cinematography was, I think, fantastic. And Yeah, did you notice that? Just sort of the mood it helped build?
I'm trying to think if I picked up on this before I listened to the commentary. I feel like I did, but then I listened to the commentary and Jane Campion actually said that the intention was to create the feeling that many women have, and that these women, that Jennifer Jason Leigh's character and Meg Ryan's character have, of sort of constantly being hunted or, seen as prey in a city like New York, where there's just on every corner there's someone leering at you, someone who, if you caught their eye, would take it as an invitation. That it's just a constant hum of attention. Right. She didn't use all those words. She said it much more succinctly, but
but you totally get that, and I think that is a very just a very true point of view this movie has. And I remember the first time I realized that was a thing in reality. I was talking to, I don't even remember who, it could have been my wife or somebody, and just talking. I think I was talking about like why, because all the women I know are obsessed with murder, and they love watching like Dateline and all these things about like husbands killing their wives or killing their girlfriends, and just like being obsessed with murder in some weird way. And I was just like, why is that? And the answer was, well, we always have this fear that we're going to get murdered. Like you, Bryan, can walk down the street in the broad daylight and feel totally safe and not even think about it. But when I walk down the street, I got to like be aware and think about like every dude that's around, because you just can't quite trust them. And I'm like, whoa, really? That's heavy. And I've heard many other women say that, and like this movie kind of taps into that for sure as one of its themes. Like, is that you have to constantly have your guard up, or just be aware that there's like just right over your shoulder could be some guy, whether he's bad or not. Just like but there's just like you're gonna have to constantly kind of think about sort of the eye of men on you.
Well, yeah, I mean the good guy in this movie is very morally compromised. If Mark Ruffalo, and the movie makes it really clear, he's not going to be a part of the solution of this film. We're going to completely sideline him.
What's great is they really, like, to the point of literally handcuffing him to a thing in a room where he can't be a part of the end. He can't be a part of the climax.
Yeah, like, you're not even watching it thinking
he's gonna go help her.
No.
Like the last 20 minutes of the movie, which is great, is like she goes off and deals with this situation, and the whole time you're thinking like it's gonna be the trope of the dude's gonna show up at the end and he's gonna shoot the real bad guy, or he'll save her, and he doesn't, because she said, in a way, you don't need to do that. I'll do that. I'm going to handcuff you to this thing. Even though she doesn't know that yet, she does it because she thinks he's the killer. But in a way, that's sort of like, that's what happens, is she goes off and she figures it out and she handles it herself. And then she comes back to him. And it's in the end.
I got a question at the end of the movie. And now, am I wrong? Like, but it sure seems like there's a bunch of liquid on the floor.
Yeah.
When she comes back, is that piss?
That's what I think. That's what I thought.
So he's laying in a puddle of his own piss, and she gets down, instead of helping him out of it, she lays down in the puddle of piss, and that's the end of the movie?
I think, I couldn't tell if that was, because it was also pretty messy, and at first I was like, oh, did he like hit, because he was like chained to, is he chained to like a pipe or something? I couldn't tell if it was like, did he break the radiator maybe, and that's water from the radiator, but still couldn't unlock himself? But
I don't think so. Yeah.
But at the same time, the way it's positioned, it seems like it could be his urine, because he has been there for a few hours and is excited, like they worked up that he's like that his girlfriend's gonna get murdered, and and just the end of the movie when you realize, spoiler, that he's not the murderer. Watching this movie again, just realizing sort of when he gives her, there's a part when he gives her a charm that was off her bracelet that fell off when she was attacked by the murderer in the street. and she thinks that he did it, and she thinks that he attacked her, and he's given her the charm back, just to be creep or whatever. And then you realize, like, no, he really genuinely did find it. It was giving back. Like, the whole movie, when the parts where he seems really confused and upset as to why she's accusing him of being a murderer and all this, he really was upset because he really wasn't. You kind of feel sorry for him a little bit, tiny bit. Just sort of like what he had to go through, too. Because he really is trying to do the right thing in solving this crime. Just, he just didn't get there in time.
Now, wait a second. Are you trying to tell me, Bryan, that you didn't figure that out about, like, I don't know, halfway through this movie that
it wasn't him?
Yeah.
I assumed it was his partner at one point, but I kind of, for a while, really thought it was Kevin Bacon.
Well, yeah, he's definitely the one who seems like he's committing other crimes against humanity.
But then it's like with all mysteries, you're like, well, that's too obvious. But it definitely, I feel like the first time you really do think up into the end, it could be Ruffalo's character, because so many of these movies, like, what is it, Blue Steel, or like Sleeping with the Enemy, like those kind of 90s erotic thrillers, that always is the plot of like the lady falls for the dangerous man, but then it turns out he's really dangerous, and then he is the killer, usually 99% of the time. That is how these movies turn out, always. That like he is the killer, but she's already involved with him, and it's already complicated. And this movie doesn't do that. But the relationship.
Yeah, but so this is my quibble with the film, and it's, to be clear, I'm quibbling about something I don't really care about. I don't think I think if the movie cared about it, it wouldn't have done this. But it all hinges on this tattoo that we see in shadow.
Yeah.
And then it's the first thing she sees about him, and she knows about the tattoo the whole time. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm part of this special club. And he has a partner who is very well established. And the idea that she wouldn't, and she has many opportunities to look at his hand and see a tattoo there, like in many different situations. And the camera never looks at it, and she never looks at it. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that when she's worried about the tattoo and she hangs out with the two of them in the bar, and his buddy's drunk, and I don't think he's wearing a jacket, or like that she doesn't look at his hand. And when she's sitting with him at his desk in the police station, and he's playing guitar with his hands in front of her, and they never show, like, we only see him when his hands are covered by, it's like Austin Powers, like when there's a plant in front of it. The film, like, I just feel like that's a cheat from the film that I really didn't appreciate. Like, it just was rubbing my nose in it. That, like, come on, she's really smart, and she's totally paranoid, and she's thinking everybody else is going to kill her except the one guy who was most likely to be the other one who has a tattoo, which would solve all of her problems, because then it wouldn't be Mark Ruffalo. Well, and it would be this dirty cop who they don't even let carry a gun because he did something bad. When a cop did something bad enough to take away his gun,
that it means he's just a killer.
Not just a killer, an egregious killer.
Not the normal cops that kill, but
yeah.
So
it even offends the cops.
So you're saying this movie should have started with a scene of a tattoo parlor advertising free tattoo day, and all the main characters of the movie, and then some, just in line being like, I'll get this little tattoo. And so you start the movie with 40 people, every man in the movie, Kevin Bacon, her student, they all have this tattoo. And
honestly, I would have, I would have done, if I was adapting this as a screenplay, I'd be like, well, maybe that works in the book, but we need to change it to
another detail, like a type of
a birthmark that he couldn't have with this other guy, and then it can still be the other guy. We just don't have to have them both have the same tattoo.
I would have liked it if it was just Mark Ruffalo did get the blowjob from the lady, but then the other guy killed the lady.
Yeah.
Why couldn't that also be like this guy?
It seems very on brand for the
Right?
Mark Ruffalo character.
And in a way, it could still have been. Like, they never fully say that it wasn't that. You know, it could be he was hanging out with his partner, he did this thing, and then the other guy showed up and did the other thing. You know, right? Like, he definitely was like, I would never do it.
I love how you're talking like it's a Scorsese movie. He came and did the thing, and then they went and did the other thing. You know, the things.
But yeah, like, the sex in this movie is very intimate. And there's moments that are just kind of, like strange.
Actually, I felt like that was the one part of, like, that was like the only area where I felt like Mark Ruffalo behaved like a human being.
Yeah.
Like, and in a way, there was a way that he navigated intimacy with the Meg Ryan's character that felt like, I don't know, both like trusting and intimate, and also sort of generously audacious, I guess. Just like being willing to be sort of what, like, if Miss Wyckoff, again, and this gets into, like, it's kind of an unfair comparison in a lot of ways, but if Miss Wyckoff had met Mark Ruffalo's character, well, she would have wondered how she got into this time machine, and when she was, and she's in New York in 2003 instead of Freedom, Kansas in 1951. But I feel like what Robert Vaughn is trying to prescribe for Miss Wyckoff in that film is what Mark Ruffalo is, and to some degree Jennifer Jason Leigh as a counsel are providing for. Is her name Franny?
Franny, from Meg Ryan's character, Franny. Yeah.
I feel like there's another Franny in another Jane Campion film I just watched. Is it Franny and Bright Star? Fanny Braun is Fanny and Franny, and you know Fanny has all kinds of doesn't mean the same. Like, if you're one of our listeners in England, you're losing your shit right now because of how many times we're saying that word. Jane Campion being, one of Australia is Australia still a member of still part of the realm?
Yeah,
the realm.
Yeah.
So she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. I also learned from an Australian friend that another word for vagina is map of Taz. If you say map of Taz, that means vagina, because they think Tasmania looks like a vagina.
Okay, a little nappy dugout action from from Bulworth. Okay. Oh, now we have something to. Now everyone's losing their shit. Okay.
And you can tell with these sex scenes that this is a movie directed by a woman. These do not feel exploitive. These aren't. These are very intimate sex scenes, and you can tell that that's why maybe Meg Ryan was comfortable doing them, or maybe she wasn't comfortable but trusted Jane Campion to do it in a way that is not a way that a guy would have directed it. Like, it's very emotional. It's not there just to kind of show the body parts. They're really well done. They're really good. And that was sort of the only thing people talked about when this movie first came out, was like, oh my God, can you believe that Meg Ryan's getting naked and having sex? But so is Ruffalo. He's taking his clothes off too. And I mean, that's really his face in Meg Ryan's bottom. Sure looks like it. Like, that's kind of shocking to see actors be that intimate with each other in a Hollywood, or in a big movie, you know? But, you know, good for them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it was equal opportunity. If from the eye candy standpoint, I feel like that was where the Burt Reynolds-ness came across. Because, he got his, aside from being a movie star, one of the things that made him majorly famous was posing totally nude.
Playgirl, yeah.
In Playgirl.
Yeah.
And I felt like the scenes of Mark Ruffalo in bed were staged to remind us of Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
And which is sort of like, I guess like the shot across the bow of the female gaze fighting back, at least as far as culturally, as far as my cultural memory goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that part of it's interesting when we sort of dissect it. It's not that the film avoids doing what a male filmmaker would do, in the sense of there's erotic nudity and it's not hidden in any way. It could be seen as being exploitative, except that the camera is sort of equally hungry and nonchalant about both bodies.
Yeah, which a guy would not do, I don't think.
I don't want
most.
I'm sure that there's a filmmaker out there, some male filmmaker out there who's like, I could do that. I'm not a pervert like you, Bryan. I could actually shoot two beautiful people. I don't have to be a woman. I could actually be just attracted to both of them with my camera.
Andy Sedaris did that. He was a director that filmed both bodies equally.
So, I'm just saying, let's, on behalf of the future good men who are out there standing on the shoulders of greats like Jane Campion, she shows the way. And I think what you're saying is that the way she does it, it does shame a different kind of filmmaker. Yeah. Like, one of those shitty dudes like Amy Heckerling. Oh,
right. This is a really sweaty and hot movie too. Like, I think Meg Ryan's character is undressed through most of the movie, or like in her underwear, or just hanging out in like small amount of clothing, because it feels like the air conditioning is not working anywhere and everyone's just kind of sweaty, and it feels like a very like, this is August in New York and nobody has any good way of cooling off. It's a very sweaty, not as sweaty, like not the sweat, like the sweat meter, not as high as like the Paperboy, but as an urban sweaty movie goes.
It's what do you say? Is it cooler? It feels like it's just a little bit cooler than Do the Right Thing, but in the same. It's just because these people are like a little bit wealthier and can have like air conditioning.
Their window unit's a little more functional, but it's still a window unit, so it's not perfect.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell you, I really get that more from Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. She seems like that, just the right amount of hot and annoyed, and like it's too hot for me to suffer fools or have any pretensions. Like. You've talked about being a big Jennifer Jason Leigh fan. Yeah. This seems like some primo JJL.
And it's a really weird character, because you're like, at first you think, are you a stripper? Is that why you're hanging out with all these strippers? They're like, no, you just live above them. But why would you choose to do that? And it's just sort of an odd, like her character is just kind of strange, and she's definitely the one pushing Franny to kind of be a little dangerous and be like, yeah, you should date this cop, but who cares if you got a blowjob in the basement? Like live a little, and sadly kind of inevitably leading to her death by pushing this relationship. If she hadn't done it, maybe she would have lived to see another day. And like, I like the scenes of her and Meg Ryan trying to ask about their dad, because they had the same dad but different moms. And this movie does this weird thing where it cuts to this sort of fairy tale thought of their dad meeting the mom on like an ice skating.
Yeah, on a frozen lake. And
it looks very much different than the rest of the movie. It's very composed and very dreamy. And it eventually turns into a nightmare scenario at a certain point in the movie. But I really like those moments between them where they're just sort of... And it feels very casual and very real. With like, this feels like what kind of half-sisters might talk about when trying to kind of remember or talk about their parents or whatever. And just their relationship of hanging out in the apartment, and just the casualness that they have, and comfortable, the way they're comfortable with each other, just feels very, just real. And so that, and it makes it all the more upsetting when something really bad happens to Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, because it's not just some nobody that this happens to. Like, it really is shocking. When
some nobody.
Yeah.
Come on. Your disdain for these strippers is really just.
Well, I mean, like a character,
terrible.
like a character
First,
the way.
First, you're like, why would anyone choose to live? Because living above strippers is fun, you know? I mean.
Or too loud, male or female. That's a lot of loud bass.
You are like. I'm just on behalf of Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. She'd be like, "You're boring. Come on, that's the most fun." Listen, old man, get off my lawn. I get to go down and hang out with the strippers. That's the time when you want. It's like at the band. Like, the time that it's fun to be with the band is after the show. All day long, everyone's got nerves and whatever. They're just dealing like whatever. Then at the show, all their egos are up, and they're all the adrenaline, and everyone else is around, and here, get me an autograph or whatever. But then afterwards, hanging out. It's the same thing with bartenders. Hanging out with bartenders afterwards. Anyone who has to deal with showmanship and people, getting to hang out with them after the end of the show is the coolest time. And it's worth putting up with some pumping music.
I think it's cool when you're in the mood for it. But like, I, in Olympia, lived with a bunch of bartenders who worked at the Brotherhood.
The Broho.
And the Broho, great bar, still there, right? Great place. Yeah. And they would come home at around 3 o'clock, like, because they took an hour to clean the clothes shop at 2. And then they would be up till about 6 in the morning. Fun when you're in the mood for that. Not fun when then you have to wake up at 8 in the morning to go to school or to go to your job that's the boring day job. And there was many a time where I'm like, I wish these people would die. I love them. They're all great friends. They're great people. But like, when you're not in the mood to hear drunken antics all night long, then then it's not as fun to live near such action.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just lame. I'm just a total square.
That's why that's why you probably would be more likely to go out with Meg Ryan and then go out with Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah, I would totally dirty talk with Meg Ryan while I'm trying to work. It's a great. The other complicated character, great performance, is from Sharrieff Pugh as the student that Meg Ryan has a strange relationship with. I don't remember seeing him. I've never seen him in anything else before. Have you?
According to the director's commentary, or the thing that they showed, and this was his first big thing.
Yeah.
And wait,
he's since gone on to be in things like Orange Is the New Black, and like, he's still working. He was in a movie called Good Friday a year ago.
He was in a film called Trigger Happy. That's not our Trigger Happy.
He was in The Night Of, the HBO show. The
one with John Turturro. That's what I was saying.
So he's been
great show. That was great, by the way. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I really want to, because I love Richard Price.
It's awesome.
But he's just done a lot of TV work. But he's really good in this movie, and it's a really odd character, just like everyone else in this movie. Because at first you're like, who's this man she's meeting with at a bar to kind of teach her slang? But then you realize that he's actually a student in her high school. And then he's obsessed with John Wayne Gacy, which is very odd, like a little unhealthily obsessed, and kind of defending John Wayne Gacy in a few scenes of sort of like, oh, he's misunderstood, or, this and that. And then there's an odd scene where she's really drunk in her apartment and he's there, and then they kind of start to make out, and it starts to become a thing, and then she realizes she doesn't want to, and he gets really upset. And that's a very odd, strange scene in the movie. And again, it's just like with everyone else in this movie, a very complicated character, but done really well, like very believable, that maybe this guy's got a little bit of mental illness going on, or maybe this teacher is kind of the relationship is weird with him, and he's kind of getting a little nutty just because of the way she's interacting with him, because it is inappropriate in a way, because she's his high school teacher and you don't really understand his age.
Not in a way. It's
very
inappropriate.
Much, yeah. Very much.
like,
Because he must be at least, 16, 17 if he's in high school, not any older, maybe 18 if he's a senior.
And the film, this is one of the things that I feel like the film does a great job at, and it gives it that sort of paranoid edge we were discussing, is the way it shows the men's reactions to Meg Ryan and Jennifer Jason Leigh that those characters don't recognize. And it's introduced the first time most prominently, I feel like, is when the first time she goes to meet with that character, the first time Meg Ryan goes to meet with him, and she's walking with Jennifer Jason Leigh, and they show up, and Jennifer Jason Leigh is like, "Thanks for sharing your bed with me," or there's this way that they're just talking very casually, and not thinking about it, and we see his reaction of like, "Why are you sharing this are you guys lovers?" When this is you can see he's sort of like turning it into porn in his head, and this all happens. It's a great example of show don't tell, and just the way that she manages to pick up that reaction. I'm sure she directed that reaction too. That's a directed moment. It's not just haphazardly captured. But I feel like throughout the film that sort of sets up this idea that there are people tracking. I guess that's the way the film is confronting the male gaze. That the male gaze is going to keep asserting itself on these women, and they are ignoring it or playing with it or running from it at their peril, but they can't, but it's going to be there regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like too the constant lighthouse imagery, the phallic lighthouse.
Yeah, Jane Campion was a little bit embarrassed. She's like, "That there's a point."
A little obvious, maybe, but I liked it. Was she embarrassed about it on the commentary that it was a little too on the nose?
Well, yeah, she said that the first after the blowjob scene, the next scene is Meg Ryan in class, and there's just a big
on the
red
chalkboard
lighthouse on the chalkboard.
But then it shows up again as a model on the desk of Ruffalo's partner. And then the climax itself of the movie is a fight on a lighthouse. So it's like the end of the movie is her literally fighting on a giant cock, fighting this horrible man.
They actually cut out a scene of Dorothy Malone massaging the lighthouse and weeping over the death of her son, the cop. So if you got that reference,
a little written on the wind reference for you out there. Yeah. I love a good forced, in your face phallic, not even a symbol because it's just right there. It's like,
right.
It is just a dick. But I appreciated that. Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall,
examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.
Have you ever thought about being a sex worker?
Or robbing a bank?
Or maybe you're bored and thinking of climbing Mount Everest on a whim?
If you've got a bad idea,
we've got good advice from the people who've been there. Hi, I'm Marty Caproni.
And I'm Joe Garrix, and we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, Good Advice for Bad Ideas, right here on the Paper House Podcast Network. It will be interesting.
We promise.
Dear listener, if you are just discovering our podcast, you can find all of our episodes on our website at theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can also write to us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com or follow us on Instagram at theworldiswrongpodcast. And now, back to the show.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, just kind of your journey through Jane Campion's movies, because you've seen more than me now. I've seen the piano. I've seen sort of like the greatest hits. I've seen The Piano, and I've seen Portrait of a Lady, I think, but a long time ago. I've seen some of the early stuff, like Two Friends. But you kind of went, like, I haven't even seen Power of the Dog yet. So I'm just kind of curious as sort of like your take on, like, what is your take on Campion? Having done a deep dive. Like,
well, my take on Campion. Honestly, she's good, but not for me.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that I didn't get a lot out of these, but I would say almost all of her films are a tough watch for me.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, I'd say the same thing about. All of his films are a tough watch for me. There are... one of the things that I love about films is there can be a director who you really like, and what they're interested in is something that you're not that interested in. Mm-hmm. But because they're interested in it, Alfred Hitchcock, I now am interested in murder. Yeah. Or Martin Scorsese, I am now interested in caring about the inner lives of gangsters. And with Jane Campion, I am now interested in the lives of difficult women struggling with terrible systems and horrible men with whom they are either stuck out of societal prejudice or out of sympathy. Mm-hmm. And there's just a pace, there's an energy, to Campion's work that is, it's an uncomfortable place to go and be. Oddly, I felt like in Top of the Lake, that's probably my favorite thing, and it might just be that energy works for me better over with a larger palette. And when she's having to make a 90-minute movie, she's cranking it up as much as Tarantino cranks up his violence. That the overwrought misery of so many of her characters is just... maybe it's even it was easier to just take it all. Like just go, okay, I'm going to watch in the last 48 hours, I've watched Holy Smoke, Bright Star, and Portrait of a Lady. And I think maybe all three of them together were easier than watching any one of them on their own. Huh. My favorite, maybe it's just the last one I watched, but The Portrait of a Lady is a pretty phenomenal film. But maybe there's something about me that makes that easy, like an easier one to watch, and maybe it's not as good or as strong.
Yeah.
To give people the rundown, Sweetie was from 1989. I still need to see that. That's the one that put her on the map. Then 1990 is An Angel at My Table, which I haven't seen either. Then The Piano, which won the Academy Award. And was that Best Picture?
No, I think it just got supporting actress.
No, the main actress.
It got actress. Holly Hunter got actress. Like, I think it got... I don't think it won any... Like, it didn't win Best Picture. Because that was the year...
Yeah, it won Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Screenplay.
Yeah.
And The Piano is... to my memory of it is it's such a brutal film. Like it lives in the place that Schindler's List lives for me.
Same year.
I survived The Piano.
93. Yeah, it was tough on people, I guess.
And then just the Portrait of a Lady is just a really, I really enjoyed it a lot. The cast is phenomenal. Well, I don't want to say I've enjoyed it. It's like maybe like the better version of Dangerous Liaisons, both films John Malkovich is set about destroying a woman that we have a lot of sympathy for. So if you're into that sort of thing,
that genre,
that's a double feature to just. But I think it might be an interesting comparison to, like, from, if we are going to look at it as a binary, like male filmmaker, female filmmaker, if you look at those two films and where their sympathies lay, and why, you could maybe see how The Portrait of a Lady is almost a response to Dangerous Liaisons. And I think, and as someone who likes the first, Dangerous Liaisons, or generally thinks that he likes Dangerous Liaisons, I think this is a much better movie. Yeah, definitely a much better movie. And then Holy Smoke, which you have seen, so now you can talk a little bit about that.
Have I seen that movie? I don't know if I have or just read a lot about it.
I thought you said.
No,
okay.
I just know a lot about all the tough stuff in that movie, and I read so much about it that I can't remember if I was like, I don't think I can see that movie, or if I saw it and just kind of pushed it out because I was upset. Like, I remember.
Really?
I just remember the relationship between Harvey Keitel and Kate Winslet being, again, very complicated, and just reading about it.
Well, I'll tell you I'll tell you. So it's the story.
I think I've seen it.
Kate Winslet plays a woman from. It seems like this is the most Australian of Jane Campion's films that I've seen. Again, I haven't seen Sweetie or An Angel at My Table, but certainly more than The Piano or The Portrait of a Lady. And it's a modern story. Kate Winslet plays a woman who goes to India and falls in with, it seems like, some sort of tantric love cult, and is devoting her life to this Indian master, and her family gets her to come home by telling her that her father is dying. And then she gets there, and when she gets there, she finds that they've hired Harvey Keitel, who's this great cult deprogrammer.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem like he's a very great cult deprogrammer, because it seems like pretty early in the film, his integrity is totally off, and he's very quick to fall in love with Kate Winslet's character. I felt like this was the film that I had the hardest time understanding, but maybe it's an Aussie thing. Maybe it's an Australian thing. And there's some beautiful images, and I feel like there is something that is, who's the English director we did a whole thing on?
Stephen Frears?
Stephen Frears. There's something that reminds me of the Stephen Frears stuff with Colm Meaney.
Okay.
Like it's that kind of a film with this odd take on it, which is that the daughter, well, it's like in like The Snapper, the daughter is pregnant. In this one, the daughter has joined a Indian tantric cult. And in that one, has an inappropriate relationship with a neighbor, and in this one, Kate Winslet has an inappropriate relationship with Harvey Keitel that kind of breaks and unmasks him. And I think there's definitely something to it, and it might be a welcome break in the world of Jane Campion. I'll be honest, I like Harvey Keitel, but there aren't many films where he's the lead that I like. I like Harvey Keitel as part of a movie more than as the lead in a movie. So maybe if it was a different actor, I might be more inclined to buy the film. Then we get to In the Cut, which we've dissected to a certain degree here. And then Jane Campion makes many, many fewer movies. That In the Cut is 2003. Then it's 6 years before her next film, and it's Bright Star, the story of the love affair between the poet John Keats and Fanny Braun, going back to this sort of a similar world as The Portrait of a Lady, a literary sort of period piece. And this is just a very, very deeply felt romantic movie with Ben Whishaw and Abby Cornish. And I guess it could feel kind of slight unless you were... I think if I was a young romantic person, when I was a younger, more romantic person, I feel like the film might have spoken to me even more. But very good. Very good. Jane Campion's shaking her head. Very good is not an opinion, Mr. Jones. But I think maybe you had the same opinion, Jane, because then you just decided, I'm not going to make any more movies for 13 years, 2009 to 2021. And then we get to The Power of the Dog, which, of course, is her Oscar-nominated film and probably, I don't want to say probably, but the favorite to win the Academy Award for Best Picture and probably Best Director.
Yeah.
And considering the ones that are nominated that I've seen, I would have to agree. It's a very, very well-made movie.
Why do you think everyone's all behind that movie? Like, that is definitely the movie that is the favorite of pretty much everybody in terms of the list of movies that everyone's like, yep, she'll win director. Yep, this will win Best Picture. Like, what do you think is about that movie? I haven't seen it. But what is it that movie that people are attaching to, that they're so into with it, other than it's just good? Or is it just not the obvious sort of Oscar good? So it's like, oh,
no.
Like,
it is a genuinely masterful film. Going back, looking at all of these other films, well, particularly thinking about In the Cut and Holy Smoke, I would say that they are films that are just sort of kind of spilling out over the edges.
Yeah.
And you could even say that The Piano and The Portrait of a Lady are a filmmaker trying to prove themselves that they can do. There's a different kind of masterful when you're trying to show how good you are, mm-hmm. and when you just know how good you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the difference between The Piano and The Power of the Dog. And the difference between The Power of the Dog and most movies is vast. It is one that, in that sort of pure cinema, Kubrickian, Hitchcockian kind of way, is just a masterful magic trick of a movie. This is the way I will describe this movie, and this is both a praise for it and a condemnation of Oscars and the kind of films that win Oscars. The Power of the Dog is a movie that you have to watch a second time, because it's the only way to really make sense of what just happened to you, what the film just did to you, and you will never watch it again after that unless you're part. Like, it's not. I don't think it's a happy place to be. If you decide to do your own Benedict Cumberbatch Film Festival, then of course you're going to show this. It's a great performance from him. The great performances all through. But compared to some other films like that we love from this year, like Annette and other ones like that, which I could see myself going back to many, many times, tends to be like, I haven't gone back to Chariots of Fire many times either. And I really liked that movie when it came out. And I think that as to why Power of the Dog is going to win. It has that going for it. It also has the snub factor. Like I'm remembering her as like she should have won for The Piano, and like she just checks off all the boxes. And the film is that good. It is. If she wins for this, then she is going to win for the one she should win for in her catalog. It's not like this is like a reward for The Portrait of a Lady.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way, this is the reward for whatever she did during those 13 years to become so deeply confident in her craft that she could do something so perfect and so effortless.
I love it when a director gets to that place. It's always very exciting. Like I felt that again with Tarantino, like watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, he just makes it look so easy, but it's not. But this is like a perfect movie. Or watching, Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Like it's just like The Phantom Thread, which is like on paper shouldn't be some great movie, but you're like, this is so masterful. This is someone who is so confident and knows exactly what they're doing, and is just giving us great cinema. Yeah. I'm excited to watch Power of the Dog. I really am. Which is weird because usually movies up for Oscars turn me off and I have no excitement to watch it. But I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. Very unique in her catalog as well. It has all of the themes, but the focus, it is this other level of filmmaking, which is just great. And I sort of hinted at it, but Top of the Lake as a series, both seasons are great. The first season it's definitely my favorite thing that she's done. It balances this pretty intense murder mystery wrapped around a very conflicted and maybe more like one of the first Elizabeth Moss performances that really made me see what probably what other people had seen before.
Yeah.
And then this odd comedy that is sort of even Cowgirls Get the Bluesy in the sense of this separatist women's community with Holly Hunter as their leader. And you put all those three things together and it just makes for just a really, really excellent series. And then in the second season, Nicole Kidman joins the cast.
Wow.
As a very sort of ugly and unpleasant woman who getting to see Elizabeth Moss and Nicole Kidman play off each other for Jane Campion. Just describing it makes me want to go back and watch it again. Top of the Lake, China Girl. So yeah, those are two really, really great. I mean, that's what she was doing in that time between Bright Star and The Power of the Dog, and certainly that ain't nothing. But yeah,
great.
So,
well, I hope she wins. I think that would be really exciting. I'm looking forward to watching at least that part of the Oscars, and maybe only that part of the Oscars.
I'm still hoping that like somewhere in the middle, like someone just breaks down like Elvis Costello about to do.
Wait a minute! It's a net. It's a net.
It doesn't make any sense to do this song to have these nominees here.
This is the movie. These are the real nominees. Yeah, that'd be great if they just did that. They're like, this is actually what was actually nominated. We punked you. This is fake. This is a Jackass skit. This isn't real. Here are the other movies. Well, that'll be our Oscars. We'll be the Kool-Aid guy busting through.
Oh,
the
and
wall.
it should be Lady Gaga who does it. Like she comes out with a guitar, like with Elvis Costello's glasses. But
stop. Yeah, I would like that.
I'm gonna get this award. No, she didn't talk like that.
That's racist. My people, what are you doing? Jared Leto over here.
No. Jared Leto is. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Oh, you got to see it.
All right.
Oh, you got to see it. Oh.
This sounds like you're doing Chef Boyardee or something.
Very sad, Chef Boyardee.
The saddest Chef Boyardee. Well, great. I'm glad
Chef
that you.
Boy, am I sad?
I'm glad to have done.
That's like the Mad Magazine version.
I'm glad to have done In the Cut. I'm looking forward to now doing the Oscars. I think I'm ready to take a break from intense sexual dramas.
But not before we have our guest host.
Yes.
Who's going to join us.
Very exciting for this next episode.
Do you want to introduce her to our audience? Get people prepared for, because you invited her. We'll be talking, but.
Yeah. So our next guest is a woman that. Hold on. I unplugged my headphones. Oh, I got too excited. Yeah, so our next guest is someone I've known for quite a while, someone that I worked with at Vulcan for a long time. And she's been nice. And I work with her at AFS. She is one of the head programmers there. Her name is Jasmine Moreno. She's great. She has a very unique point of view of movies. Like, she'll like things that... She's definitely going to be part of our family. I think she likes movies that people hate. She'll show movies and champion movies that people will scratch their heads at and be like, what? But she, hopefully like us too, is really great at convincing people to get on her side. To champion these movies that aren't necessarily championed all the time. And yeah, I'm excited to hear your conversation.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about a film that I don't think it's going to take a lot to convince you to want to see. It is the film Foxfire from 1996, a film I hadn't heard of at all, based upon a Joyce Carol Oates novel, Foxfire, Confessions of a Girl Gang. And it features a young and more charismatic than anyone deserves to be Angelina Jolie as sort of the James Dean character, leading a gang of otherwise pretty, generally good students, young, upstanding women who are being preyed upon by a bad teacher played by John Deal. And one of those students is Jenny Lewis in one of her very rare film performances. We are cornering the market on Jenny Lewis performances on this podcast. And it's great. It's a really, I cannot wait to talk to Jasmine about it, because this is a very exciting film.
And it's interesting that we, without thinking about it, programmed 3 movies in a row about teachers and weird sexual situations. We didn't mean this triple feature to happen, but that's what's going on. The world is wrong this month. Yeah.
Sometimes
the stars are aligning in a strange way for us, but who knows why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, you're not. Yeah. You're going to hear how it all goes. You're throwing me and Jasmine together.
Yeah, I talk to her about movies every day, so
fly.
I'm taking a break, and now it's your turn. So,
okay. Also, should say that Foxfire was directed by Annette Haywood Carter and written by Elizabeth White. So,
cool.
And edited by Louise Innes. So the creative team, no dudes, as far as we can tell.
Good.
So good. So good on you, Jasmine, for busting up this sausage fest and bringing a totally different take on the over-sexualized teacher. So get excited. You can find that streaming. I found it on Vudu. So maybe you can find it there as well. And if you dig this podcast, which why would you be listening at this point if you didn't? Why don't you? How about you get in touch with us? Let us know. You can send us an email at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com. That's theworldiswrongpodcast.com is our website. There's a page devoted to every one of our episodes there, so you can find out information about them. And my downstairs neighbors are cooking something really good. It just came wafting up through the floor, like something like some really good pasta, tomato sauce, something. Okay,
focus.
Sorry.
Hey, Andras, focus.
Sorry, we've been going a long time here. This is our third recording of the day. But if you can find us, send us pictures of your food, and you'll get this exact same kind of reaction. To find us on our Instagram @TheWorldIsWrongPodcast. You can find us on Twitter @WorldIsWrongPod. And yeah, just let us know that you like the show, and if you don't like it, let us know too. We just tell us, give us constructive criticism.
We love it.
We can always do better.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think we both live our lives that way. We're just constantly criticizing ourselves in the hope it will make us better and not worse. So thanks for introducing me to In the Cut and convincing me to fill out a big blind spot in my film knowledge. And until next time, especially if you are a character living in a Jane Campion film, but this is probably true of all of us, wherever you are, the world is wrong, and it's probably wrong about you.
Want to take a sleeping pill? 2, in fact. Do you want one?
No.
It's so fucking noisy, I can't sleep. I have to move. I mean, clearly, I've got to move. Why don't you see him again? You're brave in so many ways. I mean, you're thinking about him, right?
About sex.
So? You wouldn't be thinking about the sex if you didn't like him. At least call him. He doesn't know where you are. I go to court tomorrow. Because of the tan suit. They're trying to get a restraining order against me. Probably won't be allowed within 500 miles of Dr. Katz's office. Yeah, laugh it up. You know what I'm thinking?
What to wear?
No, I'm imagining that when he sees me, he's gonna realize that he's in love with me. And, you know, one thing will lead to another, and after a love child or two, we'll get married.
Have I ever told you how our father proposed to my mother?
No. Tell me.
Well, when he was very young, he was very handsome and an excellent skater. And she was the new girl in town, barely able to skate. She was very, very innocent, very beautiful.
Of course.
And he was already engaged, but he couldn't stop watching my mother. This is my son. And finally, his fiancée got very jealous and
I would too.
and threw that engagement ring right back at him.
Good.
And that very same day, he took my mother by the hand. He danced her out to the middle forest-fringed lake. He got down on one knee and offered her the very same engagement ring.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. And at that precise moment, which is the thing that my mother always added, it started to snow.
It's very romantic.
I don't quite believe it. But it's my mother's story. It's the way she always told it, you know. It killed her. When he left, she just went crazy with grief. You know, she didn't understand it. She just couldn't believe it.
How many times has Dad been married?
4?
4? Never married my mother.
Yeah, he's already plotting the 5th.
I want to get married once. Just for my mom. Is a husband too much for me to ask for? It's too hot. Even Angela Sands had a fiance.
Yeah, well, he probably cut her head off.
That's sad.
Andras here. When I'm not co-hosting The World is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8 Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers, from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8 Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
Show.